From Bossier City, Louisiana, this is The Grouch and the Brainstorm. All right, today on the show, we got Matt.
What's up?
And we got Mike. And today is another bonus episode, as I have come to love bonus episodes because we get to do some one-on-one talking to some the real deal, people who have done the deal, people who have been in the rooms, people who have struggled with alcoholism and their own personal demons, and they somehow, some way, call it whatever you want, higher power, whatever, they managed to make it to the studio, and we get to sit down and interview them. And the gentleman we're about to interview is really good friends with my fellow host here on The Grouch and the Brainstorm, and he just celebrated a birthday. Couple, right. I think on 5/1/23, he celebrated a year.
That's correct.
And his name is Ben, and we're going to leave it at just Ben because we don't do last names on The Grouch and the Brainstorm.
That's right.
And we don't do last names on The Grouch and the Brainstorm because of the fear of the fan base growing so strong we can't go in public.
Some of us have warrants too. So
and there's
that.
And there's the warrants, especially
warrants and babies, mamas. And
luckily, they don't have Spotify in the state of Mississippi.
So.
All right, so me and Matt have a couple questions for Ben today, but we're going to start off as always whenever we have a new guest on the show with an introduction. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Ben.
Well, first off, my name's Ben. I'm an alcoholic. According to the police report, my sobriety birthday is May 1st, May 1st, 2022. And it's been a long 30 years, and I just realized this year that it was 30 years because, like that Chris Stapleton song is like, was it 25 or 26? I lost a couple years there in the party. But nah, man, it's just been a long road and me fucking up a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, I lost a couple decades, dude.
Yeah.
I lost a couple months.
Somebody one time asked me, they were like, one of my relatives was like, you remember that dog y'all had? And I was like, what dog? And they're like, the dog y'all had. And I'm like, I don't remember having a dog. And they're like, yeah, y'all had it for like 5 years. I'm like, I never knew that dog.
Yeah.
Where was I?
Your daughter used to take care of it.
Yeah, they're like, you kids.
I have a daughter?
We have pictures of the dog. I'm like, I don't know this dog, you know? I don't know. I don't know what I was doing.
Where are you from, Ben?
Oh, I grew up Stonewall, about 15, 20 minutes south of Shreveport, depending on how you drive.
Okay. So, start it out, man. Tell us school. Where'd you go to school?
Where I went to school, man. I grew up out in Stonewall, so most of us out there went to North DeSoto, and that was North DeSoto from all the way up from like kindergarten all the way to.
So it's one of them all-in-one location schools.
Yeah, except for the 2 years I spent at what's it called, the alternative school when I got expelled.
They have those over there?
Oh, not in Stonewall, but you got to drive all the way into Mansfield to get to it. And that's actually a cool story, and that's part of the journey of me being an alcoholic. The first time I got expelled, the first time I got expelled is because I pulled a knife on somebody because they took my money because I was a dumbass kid carrying around like $200, and I don't know why. I don't know how I had $200, but I was carrying it around at school, and somebody walked off with it. But then the second time I got expelled because I had a beer in my backpack and somebody seen it and snitched on me. I was just gonna have it with my lunch, but
little cocktail in the lunchroom there.
Yeah.
Nice.
How old was
Why
you?
not?
How old was you?
How old was I?
Talking to the mic, Ben.
I don't know, man. I was probably 15, 16.
So early on.
I mean, that was a couple years after I started drinking, though. I started drinking like when I was 11, 12, doing shots of tequila, watching cartoons.
Okay.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Well, nothing makes Speedy Gonzalez more real.
More
Exactly.
Speedy than
Shots of tequila.
Cuervo.
Yeah, and I should have known something was up then because it went down way too smooth for being warm tequila in the kitchen with no salt or lime.
Whose was it?
It was my dad's. I climbed up into the cabinet and got it.
Yeah, that's a good indicator early on. You know.
So you didn't come from an alcoholic home.
Yeah. I did. I mean,
and y'all had a bottle of tequila left.
well, we had. I mean, it was really it probably wasn't my dad's. It was my mom's. The Coors and stuff, the easy stuff was in the fridge. I done had a taste of that stuff. I knew I didn't like it, but I knew my mom would like it was, I don't know why she liked it because it's terrible to me, but she would chase her tequila shots with Diet Coke.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's fucking terrible, man.
the Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Was bad.
Well,
But no, there was a lot of issues in the family growing up that I really didn't see until I got in the program and started looking at other people other than me. No, my dad drank, but he never put on like he was a drunk, like what I thought a drunk was when you were growing up, like somebody who was always falling down, wasn't worth a damn at anything. He was great at his job. He was great at being a dad when he needed to be a dad. I mean, he had his ups and downs, but it was never just like belligerent with him or whatever. And then my mom, she suffered from a lot of stuff. She bipolar, a lot of chronic depression and whatnot, high anxiety stuff. And usually anytime now that I can look back on it, anytime that she had a real bad episode, it involved alcohol a lot of the time, and it's just because it made it easier for her to go off the rails. I mean, it lubricated it real easy.
With the medication and all that stuff.
I don't even know if she was on
Or just,
medication back then, but she was trying to deal with it
in her own way.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
your dad seemed like a young man. He's fairly young now.
He's fairly young. Yeah. He's doing his best to take care of himself now that he's found out he's diabetic, and he gets checked up on regular and whatnot. He does what he's supposed to. He's like, when y'all saw him at my birthday, he had dropped a lot of weight shortly before that because he had to go on a low iodine diet, so that cut out like anything with salt in it and all that. So
isn't it funny how we come from different? Like, I grew up in a family, immediate family, mom and dad. They didn't drink a drop. They were pastors in the church and all that stuff. And then some people grow up around it, and we all still find our way in here. You know, and you know, it took me a little while of getting in here. When I first came in, I was like, well, everybody must be an alcoholic that drinks. And then I realized, no, I'm the alcoholic. You know, there's a lot of people that you'd call them heavy drinkers, but they're not alcoholics, you know. And
that's how I looked at a lot of people when I was growing up. Is just like everybody that I saw drink that either wasn't a casual, like one of the people we talk about who can pick something up and take a few sips of it, and then whether they finish the drink or not, or whether they pound it down, it doesn't matter. We had a few of those, but there was a lot of heavy drinkers.
Sure.
In where I grew up. But yeah, I mean, and I just thought that was normal. And I thought, like, when I started drinking and I started actually drinking a lot, is I thought as long as I could handle this stuff, is one of the ways my dad used to put it is like, if you can run with the dogs all night, you got to be able to get up and go to work in the morning. And I was always able to get up and go to work in the morning, so I wasn't an alcoholic. I was functioning. I was doing what I needed to do. But yeah, that's.
So after a year sober, what do you consider an alcoholic?
It's a broad category, man. I mean, it sweeps so wide because it all depends on a person and how alcohol affects them in their life. I mean, it's not just, there's no cookie cutter alcoholic, because if there was a cookie cutter alcoholic, I imagine we could solve the problem overnight if we wanted to. But what I would define as an alcoholic is somebody, rather than dealing with whatever issues they have or asking questions or doing anything to find a better, more constructive way to go about solving the problems or issues or whatever may come up in their life, they just drink.
Sure.
First, with addicts, find the first thing they can,
changing the way they feel,
change the way they feel. The first easiest way they can to change the way they feel, and a lot of people don't realize that what I've come to realize in the last year is that what we're doing right now, just talking to somebody about whatever's going on in your life or anything or everything that's going on in your life, is probably the easiest way to change the way you feel and deal with stuff and have it last.
And learn that feelings change. You learn that. I used to think, oh my gosh, I'm mad or whatever. I'm going to be mad for 10 years. No, I'm not. It's going to change. I'm going to be good mood, bad mood, whatever it might be, but it always changes. So using that to cover up how I feel, well, that's insanity in itself, because no matter how I felt, I used and drank. So if I felt good, I did it. If I felt bad, I did it. So what kind of signals is that I don't know. It's just a mess.
Like how would you have handled the situation earlier when I texted you that, hey, I was in a wreck, and then you didn't hear from me?
Well, I'd have handled it different back in the day, but I got it handled today. It's all good.
So you're 30 years old. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. 30 years old. Oldest of all the children?
Well, I have a half brother who's older than me, but yes, of my mother and father, I'm the oldest child.
Okay. Are you the and we're not going to ask names or ages or any of that stuff. Are you the only one that has a drinking problem?
My brother, he's a couple years younger than me, and I believe he has a substance issue. Well, he uses a substance, but I can't say whether it's an issue or not. Because he goes about his life fine. Him and his wife have no ill effects. I mean, they pay all their bills. I mean, they're great individuals. They do everything they're supposed to do, and I don't ever see any issue coming from their use. Now, my little sister, who's like 12 years younger than I am, she's 18 and about to be coming out of high school. So I'm worried about her.
As natural.
Yeah, as it should be, but I've told her, and she's been to a couple of meetings, and I've told her if she's ever got any questions about anything, I'm not trying to push anything on you, but I'm here. I can answer whatever you got. And she's asked me a few times. She's asked me for some advice about hangovers, because she had a friend who was really hungover one time. And I was like, okay, well.
She said, let me call the expert.
Yeah, hydrate, electrolytes, and let's get her back up on her feet. But we need to limit that stuff. And she's told me she's cut back. I mean, this is just word of mouth, but she's told me she's cut back on some of her drinking because she doesn't like drinking, but she likes to I don't know if she smokes pot or vapes it or eats it or whatever they do nowadays. They got so many ways you can ingest marijuana nowadays. It's wild.
I don't know.
I don't either.
I was a straight Ziploc baggie man myself back in the day.
I grew up I've never actually even really been exposed to marijuana, but I grew up in a time where you had, Cheech and Chong were on television, and you couldn't tell how they were doing it. It just was this huge cloud of smoke. And then of course I moved on into my later years around high school. Snoop Dogg came on the picture and those guys, and again, you couldn't really tell, so I don't know how it's done, but and there's always an element from people who have found recovery that we tend to watch other people, especially the ones that we love. We tend to watch them a little closer than we would before we got into recovery. And I think that just comes from the experience of seeing the different ages, genders, races, different everything that we see in Alcoholics Anonymous. We're such a diverse group. It's almost like, because that's my little sibling, whether it's a girl or a boy, because it is, and I found this, they may have a problem. And, and you find out over time, some of them may, some of them just work out through it. So anyway, you're 30 years old. You went to North DeSoto High School, or North DeSoto School, all the way through your years. You were born here in this town and live with your mom and dad. You have a half brother. It's a little older than you, and you have a sister. Is that it?
Yeah, I just have the my brother, my little sister, who's of my mother and stepfather because my parents got divorced.
Okay.
And then I have the half brother who I've had very limited contact with. But yeah, that's our only siblings.
And you've been drinking since basically 11, 12. Started out watching cartoons, shooting tequila.
And it wasn't like drinking daily since 11, 12, but it's...
Well, it's a little hard to get it every day when you're 11 or 12.
Yeah, you don't have a job. You don't have the money. Yeah.
I mean, your parents are not going to pay that kind of bank for a kid that's got a...
Well, I mean, sometimes the alcohol got watered down to try and keep the levels right. Because I say tequila. It started. I remember first with tequila, but it was vodka and tequila were in the cabinet often, so they stayed up there. So it was easier to water down the vodka than it was the tequila, because the tequila get pretty clear after a while.
Book.
And so besides being suspended from school, very few consequences at that early age. Hangovers, I get,
Really, the hangover stuff never really hit me until after my 20s. Like, till after I turned, till after 20, till after I turned 20.
Well, so when did you start having consequences?
When did I start having consequences? Well, the consequences probably hit when I was in the Air Force, because I became more concerned about my social life than I did my career. And the job I had wasn't one that I really cared for in the Air Force. I loved being in the service, to be honest. It was great. I love the lifestyle. It's probably something I should have went back to do, but it's not a line I'm on anymore. But the job, it wasn't conducive to me. It was a office job stuck behind a computer, and I'm more of a hands-on mechanic. I like to get out, and I like to turn wrenches and be out in the sunlight and sweat my ass off, even though I hate the heat. But I mean, I had a couple runs in high school, but that's nothing more than any other kid. And the job suffered, and then in the later part of my Air Force career, the social life started to suffer because I was doing more drinking. I'd stunted my emotional and mental growth just by...
And it was like an attitude change. Your attitude shifts to where, I feel that.
And after the Air Force, I went home and I slowed down on my drinking, but I did a lot of hanging out on the weekends with people that had no business I hanging out with, just a bunch of idiots racing cars and getting in fights. But my drinking kind of slowed down because I was taking care of my mom. But after my mom passed, it got heavy, and it was constant. It'd get on from Friday after work until Monday morning when I had to go back to work, and then it started getting on the weekdays too. But I'd kill a fifth of whiskey or rum a night just out drinking with the guys, not what I'd done before getting there or whatever. Got to at one point where if somebody called me and I told them I was doing dishes, they knew I was in the kitchen around some dishes, but mostly there was just rum and coke, and I was playing music and drinking and dancing, and I'd put some soap on the dish every once in a while. It'd take me about 3 hours to wash dishes.
Well, it sounds like the folks at Dawn would love to invite you to make a commercial for them.
Oh yeah.
Probably got to wear clothes in this one though.
Yeah.
My tidy whities or my Speedo might like.
I don't need that image in my head. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I don't need that image in my head.
Well, before we get too far outside of childhood and up into, I have to ask this question: any upbringing, background, or exposure to spirituality, God, religion, any of that?
Oh yeah, I was raised in a church, multiple churches actually, Methodist, Baptist. We were always in church. Weren't super Bible. Blah, blah, blah. I can't fucking speak. Parents weren't real big Bible thumpers.
Yeah.
But we were in church. We knew God and all that stuff. We prayed. My grandfather was a preacher at a church in Winfield for a while. But I was never beat over the head with religion. I was never told a certain path to go. But as I came up through high school and everything, and I started thinking about God, there was a point where I got real serious, and I thought, and I believed that the Christian God was the only God, and that was my path to salvation. But then I started questioning it. Probably right about the time I started drinking more, I think. All this stuff kind of went hand in hand, but I started questioning that, and I became an agnostic for a while. I guess you'd call it agnostic. I didn't really believe in any particular God was the right God. I like the idea that all religion has the right idea about
what they're trying to do.
Nobody just has the right answer. Like, you can't answer the question to the Big Bang, but everybody kind of has a general consensus of, or at least the scientific community does. But everybody, religious wise, has a good idea of what God is or what their God is. And if you take samples from everywhere, you can find similarities all across the board. And I don't like to put a name on it, even though I do call my God God. It's not your God, it's my God.
Right.
And mainly it's just love, trust, and understanding is what I like to do.
Sure.
So,
Did you go to treatment?
no treatment.
Straight off the...
Yeah. The short story of it is I'd had my second accident, which could have turned into a DUI. Got into work. People at work were worried about me. They talked to Matt because me and Matt worked at the same place at the time, and he invited me to go to his birthday, his fourth birthday, which is shortly after my birthday. And I went, and I sat in the meeting, and people just talked gibberish the whole hour. But the whole time I kept glancing up at the promises because I was scared to look anywhere. But I kept glancing up at the promises, and I'd read a few words, and I was like, that sounds good. And I'd look around the room, try not to make eye contact, and I was like, that sounds good. And I just kept reading through the promises, and I was like, okay, that's what I want in my life. So I went home, sat in my recliner, and waited for the promises to come for about 5 months, and they didn't come.
Nothing happened.
No, I lost the house and the job.
But that was, you went to that meeting, and then it was about 5 more months before you came back. But you had a big book after the first meeting.
It wasn't that first meeting. I think I came back to a couple after that.
Okay.
But there was, after the initial installment of AA in my life, there was a few months of me just being a dry drunk at the house.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because I remember going back to the meeting, and Phil asked me, did you read what I told you to read? Because he told me to read the doctor's opinion.
Gotcha.
And I was like, yeah, and I liked it. I saw myself in it. And then I think that may have been the last one I went to for months. So
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, it was the cool thing that I got out of this story, out of your story, man, is the amount of people that are not even AA people. They're just people in your life that give a crap about you. And everybody in one way or another played a little part and the only purpose of all of that was Ben needs some help. Let's figure out how to get him a little bit of help. And it was very impressive I had people come up to me and they go, what can we do? What can we do? And I said, we can offer something, and he can take the bull and by the horns and run with it. It's up to him. And you've done that. And so we ask on here a lot too. You know, we've talked about getting a sponsor for the first time and a lot of first time stuff. And this is the reason we're doing all this is for people that, you know, maybe are curious about the program or think they might need to come into it. And so you went to that first meeting with me, and it's awkward. I think everybody's first meeting's weird. You know, you don't know what people are saying. But when you came back, so you took a little break from it, and you came back in, where were you at that time, like mindset-wise? Like,
I'm really not sure. I was, let me think about it because my brain's drying out for the first time, and I'm trying hard to remember stuff.
So you lost the job.
Yeah, I lost the job, lost my house, and I was worried about what was coming next, to be honest. I was real concerned about where I was going to go in life and what I was going to do, and if I was just going to wind up poor and desolate for the rest of my life, because the job I had was a real good job. It paid really well. And I was living in a nice place, but I was really kind of just looking for guidance and advice on what I needed to do next. And I knew the people that knew how to do things right went to AA. I mean, anybody who's got any time and any good length of time, old timers or whatever, they've all got great advice on how to live. I mean, how to do things the way you're supposed to do them.
Keeping things simple more than anything. You know, it's just, it's a new design for living. You know, it's a new way of living. And, you know, but I was, so the reason I'm tying this stuff in, I was fishing with my sponsor yesterday, and we were talking about some bad stuff that's happened in sobriety and I'm putting bad in quotation marks. And he started listing off all this stuff that's happened. And he said, you know, that needed to happen. This needed to happen. This needed to happen. And he named off 4 or 5 things, and they were pretty big things. And I smiled. I was sitting there, and I was like, dude, life's so good today. Like, it's so good today, man. And he goes, I know. But he goes, if that stuff doesn't happen, you're not where you're standing here today saying life's good. And I was like, you're exactly right. And I think I know on the backstory of part of the job and the situation there, the same people that were involved in relieving you of that job were also the first people that called me and said, hey man, check on this dude, you know? And so people really gave a crap, you know, and they didn't have to do that. But to your credit, man, you jumped in there. And so you came in, how long before how was your sponsorship process, like finding a sponsor? What was your thoughts on that? I mean,
I wanted to get the right sponsor the first time.
Sure.
Which now it kind of sounds silly because I don't really know anything about these people.
Right.
And I don't know anything about the program other than that there's 12 steps and I need to make them. And trying to find the right person to guide me through that. The first time I got real lucky and I found Cal and he did it and it's great, but it could have been as easy as I walked up to Mike or Bobby or somebody and just we worked them and then it wasn't a good fit or whatever and then I had to find somebody else. But luckily I found Cal, and the reason I picked Cal is because he reminded me more of like a drill instructor. Like I didn't think I was gonna get any sugar in my cup. It was gonna be straight, no nonsense the whole time. And to be honest, it was a lot easier than what I thought it was gonna be when I worked with Cal. I didn't fully expected like a Full Metal Jacket. To yell at me, sit down, shut the fuck up. This is what we're gonna do.
Cal acts tough, but he's a big old teddy bear. I hope he hears this too. He knows he is.
But I guess I was doing stuff right. I was doing it right, so there was no sense in him having to treat me like or tell me that, hey, shut the fuck up. This is not how it works, man. You gotta do it the way the big book says or whatever. It's it was nice. I mean, to be honest, it was nice.
Cal's one of my favorite people on planet Earth, and as are most of the men that are in that group that we attend and go to. And it's funny too, because you listen to, like, Mike sitting here, and there's others in there, and I don't want to put all their names out there unless they are okay with that, but there's a lot of men in there that routinely, as I've gone along, my sponsor's not there every day, and I've learned to visit with these other guys, and they kind of know what's me a little, and I know them a little, and sometimes it's just a blow off steam deal, or it's a what am I doing, kind of thing. And it doesn't have to be earth shattering or life changing, but just those moments that kind of even the day out, and you go, okay, and man, I'm so grateful for that. I'm just so grateful to be around these guys. And there's a few ladies. I don't really ask the ladies much, just prefer not to, but there's some ladies in there with a lot of good sobriety too. But so you get going with Cal, how was your first year overall? You just had a birthday. I mean, emotionally and spiritually and all that stuff.
It's weird.
Yes.
It's very weird.
Good way to put it.
Because I spent a couple of my main problems were based around emotions and feelings. And I spent about 20 years running from that stuff, hiding it, trying not to feel or do anything that would upset that. And it started to show real hard these last few years before I got sober, because about twice a year I'd have a mental breakdown, and most of it's happened since my mom died and I got sober. I'd have a mental breakdown around Christmas and Mother's Days, because I'd start thinking about her. And
how long has your mother been passed away?
Let me do the math, because I'm a terrible son and I can't remember off the top of my head. If it's 2016,
7 years.
Yeah, 7 years.
Okay.
7 years. So I spent about 5 years of having a mental breakdown.
So you were 23 when your mom passed away, somewhere in there, 23, somewhere 24.
Like I said, it's hard for me to remember dates and whatnot, because
I get it.
I wouldn't
ballpark.
So
I get it.
About 7 years. And 5 of that I spent twice a year having a mental breakdown, and most of the time it's because I'd get to thinking about her, and then the days leading up to that I'd be thinking about her, so I'd be drinking more.
Mm-hmm.
And many of those years, like, I didn't sleep the night before. I was out drinking all night.
Right.
And I'd be fucking soaked going to family events.
Yeah.
And have a big boo-hoo cry fest, and then I'd pass out on a fucking couch, and everybody else would have the family gathering around
around the dead guy.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I'm getting to with that. Mother's Day just passed.
Mm-hmm.
How your first Mother's Day in sobriety? I'm sure it wasn't great, but how was that compared to in the past? As far as
it was nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, and I don't want to be callous in saying that, but it was nothing compared to before. I thought about her. I remembered her. But it was never just that overwhelming sense of let down. Like I've let her down. I was a terrible son.
Yeah. Well, that's what's kind of cool about this program, man. People come in with different things, and you face that for the first time in sobriety. That's a big deal, and yeah, and it'll get easier and better, and but that's a big deal. So Mike, what do you think? Anything you got for Ben?
Well, I've been listening to everything that you guys have said for the past few minutes, and hearing how he got in the story. I guess my biggest, well, first off, you've been sober for a year now for 17 days. Have you, I know you raised your hand when I asked for a sponsor, if anybody's willing to sponsor, right?
Yeah.
Has anybody came up to you and told you they want you to sponsor them?
Not yet.
Okay. When they do, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen is, I'm immediately going to have to talk to my sponsor about that.
But these guys are way newer than you, man.
So they're an old man.
They want to answer, bro.
Yeah.
They this cat raised his hand. He
knows everything.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe I need to talk to my sponsor more about that. What I do after somebody's like, "Hey, man, will you be my sponsor?" and I say yes. Like, what?
I need one of those bracelets that says WWB do. What would Bobby do? Because I deal with that all the time.
No, it's just we're gonna go through the same steps that I went through.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and put them through all the same paperwork. I may even call Bobby and try and get some of my grand sponsors' paperwork.
So,
but I'm excited. I'm anxiously waiting because I feel that's where I'm going to grow more is helping others with this. I'm excited about it. No matter, I may not be shaking in my chair, giddy or whatever when I raise my hand, but I want to sponsor.
The fact that you gave that answer tells me you're going to do just fine as a sponsor because your ego's not inflated, and some people go about that, I think, the wrong way. You hear a little, I don't know, sometimes I hear that, and it's like, man, the best sponsors are just real humble, quiet people, and they just solid as a rock. They do their program, and you're going to do good.
Yeah.
So,
and, the only suggestion I would have to make is, you've obviously stayed and till the miracle happened, you're not drinking and you don't go to drinking. But the only suggestion I would have to take and give someone would be get that first sponsee, and just see what happens. That's when the whole thing clicks together, when you get that first sponsee and you get the full effect of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I see good things happening for you, man. I do. And I haven't seen anybody in all these years and nobody, not a person, come into AA, get sober, stay sober, and their life gets worse. I've seen them have stuff happen. I've seen the loss of family, the loss of job, the loss of a loved one, all of those things, I've seen people lose their house and car in sobriety, okay? But I've never seen life get worse. And that sounds like a complete oxymoron, what I just said, but it's not. It is. I've never seen them get worse. Their life is good. So good things coming. Glad you came by, Matt. Appreciate you coming by.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad y'all forced me to be here today.
Have my buddy on here.
Yeah, Matt will cut you the check before you leave. So.
It's all right.
All right.
For $0.
For the Grouch and the Brainstorm, this is Mike signing out.